And we're live. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome. I realize that I might be a little dark. Let me just grab something real quick. Okay, and we're live. Hopefully I put this little, I think it's a windscreen. I think that's what it's called. I've realized that a lot of some of the recordings you got the pop noise, and I'm hoping this will help. If you are audio technicians, please let me know if that actually does help. I'm pretty sure it does. All right, so we've got some chat going. Hello, everyone. Amini, hello. Everyone, please tell me where you're from. I would love to know, even if you've told me before. I like knowing where you guys are from. I am from California, the Southern California in the United States. I grew up in Irvine and now live in Newport Beach. If you want to check that stuff out. I have a few questions that I need to address from April 9th. I didn't even realize this. It's been 3 days. Wow. So, or well, 10th and 11th. So 2 days. And then today's the third day if I missed today. But, whoa. I was doing it every day for a little while there. And then just decided that it's time to focus on getting some other sort of content ready to go. I had a really good suggestion to start making YouTube live events based off of a topic at the beginning and then Q&A after that. So let me know what you guys think about this. There was a really good suggestion. I don't remember where it's from. It might be in our Slack channel, which I'm going to actually put into the live chat stuff right now. So if you click on that link, it's a Kerr link. Oops, looks like I got an error. Try that again. It says Kerr.co. That link specifically from us, Coding Entrepreneurs, that link will allow you to jump in and join our Slack channel where there's additional conversations going on. I'm really thinking that Slack might be a really good place for you guys to meet each other too, which is also important because number one, yeah, you can learn from each other as far as the courses are concerned, but also you might end up building real projects together. Looks like I'm getting an error on the link. It's working on my end. So what is the error, Marcos? Thanks for letting me know. But anyways, back to the hellos. Hello. Appreciate it. Simone asks, can you explain namespace and how to use it? So in Django, you can, especially in Django 2.0, you can name your sub-module URLs using something called a namespace. So there's also a URL name. So we can actually write a shortcut name to any given URL path, right? So let's say, for instance, your home path, which would be that slash, you can write name equals to, and that's a shortcut name so you can build that URL somewhere else. It's just a shortcut to build any particular URL. Namespace adds another level to that shortcut so you can do it based off of an app itself. So namespace has sort of transitioned into being known as app name inside of a sub-module's app URLs. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, check out my recent video on upgrading Django 1.11 to Django 2.0 because that video actually shows you how to handle these namespaces in that transition. And I think that since it's only like 20 or maybe, how long was it? However long it is, it's not that long of a video. You can learn a little bit more about URLs there. And also, hey, Simone, thanks for saying hi. So doing well, everybody. I've missed you guys. I needed to do another live stream, definitely. I don't know. There's just something about this that I feel like extra connected with my tribe. You know, you guys are my tribe. Like I feel extra connected with you doing these live things, and I really just discovered that recently. So it kind of makes me wish that I was doing it a lot way before now, you know, like if I was doing this whole time, because I definitely have done live streams before, but I think I always expected them to go a certain way and they never necessarily went that way. And now I have no expectations. I'm just here to answer your questions And if you guys have questions, great. If not, I'll just ramble on for a while because you all know that I can do that probably by now. Okay, so back to the live chat. Hello to everyone. I'm going to try and keep it a little bit more concise and not necessarily read all your names when you say hello, but hello, welcome, thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it. It's awesome to have you guys here. So we've got India, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Guatemala. Awesome. Hey, everyone. Welcome. That's really cool. And Bolivia, too. Santa Cruz, Bolivia. Awesome. There's a Santa Cruz in California, too. It's probably named after the place in Bolivia. That would be my guess. Okay, so I'm going to answer a question from Juan. Juan asks, hello, my Django project. How can my Django project take all the power from a multi-core server? That's a really good question. Like, how can you actually leverage a multi-core server's processes? I believe what you can start doing is using asynchronous code, and that is Django Channels. So Django Channels 2 handles asynchronous code, which will allow your Django project to take more power from it. But really, like, what power are you needing to really use? Are you trying to do other processes that you want Django to handle? And if that's the case, maybe you use something like Redis and kind of offload those processes from Django. So you don't necessarily need to do Django in everything because there's this thing called the main thread and then also your main request. So when you go to a web application, it's ran in Django, that's a request, right? Do you really want to be processing too much stuff in that one single request when a user does something? Probably not. So you can use a worker process too. So worker processes will allow you to leverage more about how your servers, more from your server, plain and simple. That is, if your server can handle that sort of load, which I don't know all of the details on that. And then you're also starting to get into a little bit more DevOps territory, which is not necessarily my strength. So hopefully that answers your question, though. Thank you for the question, Juan. Much appreciated. Let's see. So we've got Abidjan, the Ivory Coast. I know I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Hello. And then another one from Puerto Rico. You got to say it twice if you're from Puerto Rico, right, guys? Just kidding. I don't know. You just said it twice, so I made that dumb joke. Is the link working yet? Please let me know. It might be, might not be. If it's not working, it seems to have been working for other people. So just let me know what that error is. And then we've got Tanzania. What's up? Algeria. Hello. We're getting a page not found 404 error. Ooh. Let me just double check that I actually grabbed the right link. Yeah, I did. And it's bringing me into Slack. Maybe copy and paste that actual link, like actually grab it and not going through the web chat. So it's kirr.co/n7xgvn. And of course, if you don't have access to it right now, like if you can't get into it right now, the video will post and then you can click on the description. It'll be in there. Cool. So Mohammed from Toronto. Hey, what's up? Is there a specific book for learning Django that you'd recommend? I haven't read a learning Django book in a long time. Actually, I'm trying to think if I read an online one, but I'm guessing you're asking for a physical book. So here's what I'd recommend that you do. If you bear with me, I'm going to have to plug my own content here for a second. Do something like try Django 1.11, which is an 8-hour video, right? Especially on YouTube. If you go on my website, it's broken up. But do that whole thing. After you do that, check out 2 Scoops of Django by Danny Greenfield, and his wife Aubrey. I believe it's the Greenfields that do it. That's a really good book for getting your Django stuff better. I mean, Danny actually trains other Django teachers and Django coders themselves, like advanced ones. So I think he's put out a lot of really good content over the years, and I haven't read Try Django 1.11, but I've read some of his older versions because he sent me some, and I think it's really good. So check that out. I'm sure it's on Amazon. 2 Scoops of Django. It's a physical book. I'm not sure if he did an ebook recently, but I know that there's a physical copy. And sometimes I see the merits in physical copies. I'm starting to come around with this idea is that you can write notes in it. You can put, the dog ears. You can do all of these things and just really just get into that thing and make it your own. I think that's something that is pretty cool about physical books. Maybe someday that I should actually publish a book like that. Cool. Thanks for the question. So let's see. Wow. A little scroll and I go all the way down live chat. It happens every time. I got to figure out a way to do this. And another suggestion that came up from I think it was on Slack was to make notes of what we talk about and when we talk about in these videos. So if you find something particularly interesting and you have any interest in denoting it for yourself later, please leave a comment under the video after it posts with the timestamp that I start talking about it, and ideally the subject, if you want to. I mean, it's a lot of content to go through, so that's more for people who might watch a live stream and want like actual timestamps of concepts that we talk about, so they don't have to watch, an hour-long Q&A session that, maybe addresses their question or maybe doesn't. Eventually, I would love to have somebody that actually does all of that for all of the live streams forever, as well as like put links on and stuff like that and be with me in the recording studio if I need that. That's sort of down the line, and it's all going to hinge on, how much you guys watch this, how often we get questions, and all the things that would make sense for any sort of metrics for a live stream to make sense for me to hire someone to sit here and do all those things, right? And then maybe eventually it just turns into a podcast sort of thing where we do all sorts of other stuff on live, including having guests. Excuse me a second. Okay, so Mert asks, "Hey Justin, when are you gonna publish the Django channels tutorial? You've been waiting for months. I know it's taking me a long time to get to it." Well, Django channels relies on Async IO, and so, or at least some of the concepts in Async IO. So, I would learn more about Async IO in the meantime until I actually post something about it. I am posting more things about Async IO in general. But I have a lot of things that I'm planning on doing. So I will get to Django channels. I promise you, it's too big of a concept to not cover, but I just don't have an answer as to when it's coming out yet. I know that. And actually, so I fully got it. Simone, it looks like you either deleted your message or it was retracted from YouTube. Not sure why. Just giving you a heads up. Not trying to trip. I'm not trying to skip your questions. Hey, tomorrow I have a junior Python Flask Django job interview. So far, I've been working in Python and Hadoop. What kind of questions would you say I can expect? Well, since I don't have a lot of experience doing job interviews, for Django specifically, I don't actually have a really good answer for you there. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think there's probably stuff on YouTube that you can watch for job interview type questions with Django. But if you know Python and Hadoop and you're applying for a Django job or a Flask job or a web developer job, I would imagine it would be related to some of the questions you might see on here. And I don't remember the name of this, but Pat Flynn was telling me about it. There's a website that you can go to. It's like askanything.com or something like that, where you can see what kind of questions are around any given topic. So you can do that with Django as well. Also, like Stack Overflow or Quora, go on some of their top questions and read what those questions might be, study those answers, and then give them as a response. That's what I would do. That's one tactic of how to handle that. The other is, in my opinion, how I'm handling your question right now. You admit that you don't necessarily know the answer to it, but you have a lot of strategies to find that answer and explain that to your job interviewer. That's what I think. Get to know them. Ask them questions too. Ask them about how long they've been there, like what their role is, and were they a Django developer for a long time, or were they doing it for X amount of years, or whatever. Ask those sorts of questions. You can get a lot of good questions for your interviewer, which I think will help you stand out. And I'm happy to talk more about that in particular, because in my experience, a lot of developers aren't very social, right? They just want to work. They want to do their work, and therefore, when they get questions asked, they're very just concise and okay, let's get to the next question. Where having this sort of small talk or just talking in general often might be something a manager is looking for. Maybe not, because it depends on what kind of manager they are. They might be one of those ones that is just looking for concise answers and somebody who just knows everything in and out. Sorry, not a great answer, but it's the one I've got for you. Okay, so Nick, hey man, have you tried Django and GraphQL? I have not yet. I've been asked this a few times, but I haven't. Your thoughts on Django as a backend to a SPA or a single page application? Absolutely, it's great. I think Django is Django with the Django REST framework can absolutely can be used and used very effectively as a backend for something like Angular or React or any of those types of things. How does it compare to Node? They're different and the same at the same time. Right, so Node.js and Django can do a lot of the exact same things. And with a lot of packages that Django has, they can do the exact same things. Sure, it's not the same every time, and Node.js guys would argue with me about this, but like overall, I think it's pretty good as far as a comparison is concerned. But there's a lot of things I don't know about Node.js, so I can't speak to how efficient it would be to come from a Node.js background and be like, hey, I want to do Django now and completely stop using Node, and vice versa. They can work together. Instagram has proven that Django and Node.js can work together. One for notifications, Node.js, and then Django to handle more or less everything else. So hopefully that helps answer your questions. So Mohammed asks, can you tell me about your beginning? I'm like really parched today. It's weird. So like my beginning with, I'm assuming my beginning with Coding for Entrepreneurs, not prior to that. So I'll give you the sort of condensed version. And if you want to know more, feel free to ask any question along those lines of the condensed version. So I was in college and I knew how to do some basic web design, and I knew how to do some programming via ActionScript, even though I didn't realize it was programming at the time. Those of you might know ActionScript built Flash websites and web applications way early on, but I didn't really know server-side technology that well. So I had an idea for a business and pitched this idea to a group of entrepreneurs. One of them happened to be my eventual business partner who would do the software side of things. We'd worked together for a little while. Long story short, we didn't make any money. He had to get a job and all this stuff. And so I was left with this concept of, do I learn, or do I find another person, or do I hire a person or raise money? I decided I was going to learn. I decided it's my turn to learn because, I talked to my partner a lot, and yeah, he's absolutely intelligent guy and a really good programmer. But so many times over and over, he's like, you could probably figure that out. And it was always like encouraging to hear that he's like, it's actually not that hard, and you could do it, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot, a proper shot, because prior to that, I dabbled a little bit in other ones, but I really committed myself, and I tried everything. I kept on hitting walls, and then eventually I found Python at suggestion of my former partner's friend. Said, hey, you should check out Python and Django. Sure enough, I did. He ended up being a great mentor, my partner's friend, in challenging me to get better at Django. And then I just started getting really pretty good at it, and I was able to recode that startup's website in no time. So that startup at a college's website in no time, or less time than I ever thought possible. So I'm like, I had this other idea. I'm like, wow, I really need to help other people find this too, because I grew up with entrepreneurs. I went to school for entrepreneurship, and I wanted to show a lot of them, or a lot of my classmates, how awesome it is to code. Number one, because it's a great challenge. Like, I love the challenge of figuring out how to build the software behind it. Number two, then you're not at the whim of somebody else, right? You're not at the whim of whatever their advice is, because I definitely worked with a number of freelancers that one would say, oh, this job's going to cost $50,000 to do and blah, blah, blah. And then another one would say it's going to cost $300. it's like, how do you navigate that? How do you even know which one's telling the truth or not? And honestly, they both might be and they both might not be, like, so and still that's true to this day. But now I can actually assess it a lot better. And all of these things started bubbling in my head. I was like, wow, I really, really like this idea of helping my fellow entrepreneurs learn how to code. And then or actually not then, but for a while, I was really into, reading books and reading blogs and watching videos and hearing, podcasts and audiobooks and over again, it was all about, selling this content, selling digital content. So they all sort of came together at the same time where I figured out this new skill that I found very valuable. I knew my audience, which was entrepreneurs that wanted to code or potentially wanted to code. I'll talk about that audience in a second. And then I knew that I wanted to sell some digital stuff, and also like things like Udemy and YouTube and all these other things were starting to get more popular for online education. So I released a course, and I pretty much haven't stopped since. And that was a little bit over 5 years ago now. So it's pretty cool. Now, when I said I'll speak on the audience, I meant that initially I targeted entrepreneurs solely, and I still do target entrepreneurs for sure. But Coding for Entrepreneurs is probably a better name for it at this point would be Coding for Entrepreneurially Minded, because I do help a lot of people build these skills to take agency over their own life. And then some of them end up working in organizations. And I actually don't think there's anything wrong with that if that's your path. But it's to me, entrepreneurship is about taking the resources you have and making the best out of them. Sometimes that means making a business. Sometimes that means making yourself more marketable and being able to sell and get a job and all that. Thanks for the question, Mohammed. I will have to go on to the next one now because that was a lot longer than I intended for it to be. Eduardo, one day could you do a project on Tornado? Thanks for the suggestion. I do appreciate it. Haven't used Tornado a lot, and perhaps it is something that I need to look more into. I'm curious what everyone else thinks on this one, because I really, really like Django, and also Django channels. That combination might be just like the best combination at this time for building a web application. I think that Django is still pretty awesome, but anyways, cool. So Juan, you said processes. I think you're referring to a question that I responded to or something like that. Oh, for heavy reports. You want to process heavy reports using your server. Is that what it was? So yeah, you would want to offshore that using something like Celery with Django. I actually do have some stuff on that, and there's a blog post on joincfe.com/blog that shows you how to set that up. It's pretty cool. So you use Redis and you'll offload certain things for actually building tasks. Hopefully that helps answer that question for you. AliX from Norway. Hey, what's up? Welcome back. I think you're the same person, but you have an icon. I can't tell if that's like you haven't changed your profile picture. So I don't know if it's actually the same person. I'm assuming it is, but AliX is potentially a common name. Maybe. I don't know. Probably not, actually. Okay. So you finally got the idea how to scrape with a request from your Django site. Awesome. Good job. Congrats. Brian, hey, what's up? How you doing? DG, do you think you're going to do an interview question series? Now, in order for me to do an interview question series, I probably have to actually talk to people who hire people on a regular basis. I hire freelancers here and there. I don't do it nearly as often as some people do. And when I hire them, I already kind of know what I want. So I can literally tell them this is what I want, explain it back to me, and then I just sort of trust them to do it based off of the ratings that other people have given. So if I'm going to do an interview question series, I'm really probably going to have to hear from people that have interviewed and hired like at least 50 software developers. That's just something I haven't done. So not this time. I'm sure there's plenty of them on YouTube. I know there are, where you can get a bunch of like interview question ideas. I think even Google like posts stuff on what to expect at interview questions. And I mean, Like, what are you concerned about with the interview? See, the interview is just like, do we think this person has what it takes to be a part of our team? So, like, how do you stand out in that process? That's the question, right? That's what you want to try and answer. So even if your interview questions aren't great, so like I've heard some of them are you are handed a pen or a marker and you got to write on a whiteboard what functions are and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think that's practical. That's not practical as a developer. So I would just say, like, build a bunch of projects so you can be prepared for that interview. Because really, you shouldn't be like worrying too much about acing an interview, because if you ace an interview and then suck at a job, you're going to be fired or let go really, really quickly, right? So the interview is just part of it. It's like the little bit of piece that yeah, you need to do it and you need to do well at it, but you really just need to know your craft, and I think that's more important. So you do a bunch of things to prove that you know it. One, like, having projects on GitHub, for example, just have a ton of them on there that show that you know what you're doing. Two, write blog posts about things that you find interesting in what you're doing and share those things. Those are a couple ideas of how you can stand out, and also building stuff. Yeah. So cool. All right. Thanks for the question. All right. So I got a few more things. Mohammed says, why don't you have a small team helping you a little? I've had a team here and there. So I have had a team where like I said, I hire freelancers sometimes, but I also have worked with the team where they're helping me on a more regular basis. That's a great idea for doing sort of regular content. But overall, like it really will have to meet the demand of my students. Right now, it's something that I enjoy doing. So I've been able to, work with you guys, and you guys are part of my team. Whether you realize it or not, you are a part of my team, and you help me make this content a lot better. So having somebody helping me, the question is, like, who would that be? Like handling billing. I've had that happen before. Sometimes they handle things well, sometimes they don't. So there's a lot of things that could be. So yeah, I mean, if you have ideas as to how can you make these things happen, let me know. Cool. Eduardo, would you like to do a project? I just talked about Tornado. Please let me know. Another from Ivory Coast. Hey, the country of Didier Drogba. Is that it? Hey, what's up? Welcome. Mohammed, as you constantly work alone, how do you make sure that you write the best practice and follow design patterns? I read a lot of other people's stuff all the time, so their code, and I'm constantly learning. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And you guys make sure that I'm like, the questions I get from all of my students all the time, not necessarily on this live chat, help make everything better. And every once in a while I do consult, so I have to work with other people's teams. That does make a difference too. So if you work with other people's teams, then that's a difference, right? But like with what I do right now, I don't necessarily need to work with other people's teams at all, other than you guys. You guys are all part of that team. So that's sort of answers your question. Now, when you talk about writing best practice and following design patterns, like I said, I learn all the time too. So the Django conferences, I've watched a ton of their videos on just new methodologies for doing things, because yeah, I have to get better myself. Thanks for that question. Now, you probably, when you say a team, you probably are referring to other software designers. Like, why don't I have other Django developers work with me? Well, I mean, frankly, I could have that happen, but you're talking about a very valuable salary, and sometimes it's just not practical with the amount of work that I have for all my students and all that stuff. It wouldn't be that practical to have somebody like that full time at this point, because there wouldn't be anything for them to do once they get to honestly, maybe we could do a lot of things, maybe not. Interesting question. Yeah. Okay. So, and so one of the things is like, oh, well, they could be working on codingforentrepreneurs.com all the time, or maybe helping students in a different way and doing that also. And these are things that I've considered. But codingforentrepreneurs.com, I love building that website. So I've constantly improved it. And like I said, I've hired freelancers to help fill in gaps when I need them. But frankly, I think it's a great challenge for me to take on, and I really, really enjoy it. So I let software do a lot of the work for me. Wadi says, what time I need to raw SQL in Django or Django ORM? Fine. I'm sorry, Wadi, I'm not really following what you're asking me. When do you need to write in raw SQL? Is that what you're asking me? You can use Django ORM everywhere. I think writing in raw SQL is when you know how to do it, and when you have a command that doesn't work in the Django ORM, and you will know that when that happens. So it's really on a case by case basis. Yeah. So Brian says working on offline content for education, a Django project, Colibreeze. No, I've not heard of it. Thanks for that though. We need to create interactive video quizzes. How can we create pop quizzes while they watch the videos? So you want to create a quiz module that interrupts the video and stops the video altogether. You'd probably have to use something like JavaScript to do that, and maybe just have like a list of questions that are like preloaded. When you load the page, you have the questions and the answers preloaded, or rather the questions and the options for the answers preloaded. And then your video with JavaScript, you would stop the video, show the question or questions, have them take it, and depending on their result, then it will just restart the video at whatever time series you designated. Hopefully that helps. So Mohammed, you ask a lot of good questions and a lot of very thoughtful questions too. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. You mentioned you self-learned some CS courses. Would you mind sharing the titles? I don't remember all of them, but MIT has a bunch. Stanford has a bunch. You can go through a lot of their CS stuff, and they're all on YouTube too, so you can get a lot from those. A lot of them are made for a classroom. They're not made for YouTube. They're not made for the internet. So that's part of it too. Dylan, how can a new coder be sure to stay afloat in web development? Like, how can you stay up in the latest trends and the things that change? By learning a lot. That's what I do. I mean, you have to learn from other sources, but you also need to make a lot of projects. So both of those things will help you stay current with things. So whether it's reading the documentation, reading other people's code, watching their videos, reading their blog posts, all of those things will contribute to you staying ahead of the game, or even joining other courses, right? So there's all kinds of courses for people that do this stuff. The other side is like financially, like how do you find clients and stuff like that? Prove more value to your customers than you get in return, and then you'll pretty much always have customers. That's my general idea. Brian, I think we already discussed what direction might help. Hopefully that does. Let me know. Junior, hello. Brian, you're from Cape Town in South Africa. Awesome. That's cool. Junior, hey, what's up, Junior? In 2007, you created a blog post for upcoming courses. Why wouldn't you create the same for 2018? Well, 2017, I think that like part of it was, I wanted to let everyone know where things were probably going. 2018, the reason I didn't do it is because there's probably going to be a number of big changes with software this year. Django channels is one of them. And then the Ionic framework, I believe, is going to change a little bit as well. So that's part of the reason. The other part of the reason is I've been actively learning deep learning stuff, and I wasn't ready to fully announce whether or not those things would be ready. Jeremy asks, I have the same need as Brian Fisher. I found a Django quiz app on GitHub, but can't insert quizzes in a video like many learning websites. So I think a lot of these learning websites don't actually enter the quiz in the video. Like, it's not actually interactive in the video itself, but it's laid on top of it. So that is my understanding. So you'd use some CSS and some JavaScript to lay a form on top of these videos. That's essentially what you would be doing. Rad says, hello. Hey, Rad. Mohammed asks, what's the difference between SQL Alchemy and the default Django ORM? I don't really have a great answer for that because I don't ever need to use SQL Alchemy. So I use the Django default ORM all the time. SQL Alchemy you're starting to get a little bit more advanced. So perhaps there's a blog post that you can find and let us all know. Mohammed, I'm pretty sure you're the same one that's on our Slack channel too. If you do find that, please let us know in there. We probably need a channel for resources, which is something I'm creating right now. So share resources on the resource hashtag, and I'm actually going to invite you to it. And there we go. So I just created a resources channel. Share those resources there of anything that you find that's relevant, that I can learn from, that everyone else can learn from, so we can have better discussions about it in the future. Juan asks, what courses are coming in the next weeks? Juan, I've been doing a lot of stuff on OpenCV. I plan on doing more there. That's one thing. Try Django 2.0 is coming. The web scraping with Python and Async.io, that one will be further advanced and then finished. And then we'll most likely do something related to Keras and OpenCV. That's a most likely. I don't have that for sure, but that's most likely going to happen. So those are a lot of the things that I have planned in the near future. And then if there's a bunch of things that come up in these Q&As, then I'll probably be adding stuff related to that as well. Thanks for the question, Juan. Much appreciated for being our member, being with us. I do love it when I hear that you want to learn more. I love that. That's awesome. Okay. So Mohammed asks, thanks for your answer with the book recommendation. Absolutely. You watched the Try Django 1.11 and it was superbly helpful. Great. Glad to hear it. And after that, you went to the documentation and you found too much. Yeah, there's a lot in the documentation. Did I read all of it? No, I didn't read all of it, but I read things that I find relevant when I do, when I need them, rather. And sometimes I'll watch a talk on YouTube and it'll say like, oh, you should do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And then I'm like, hey, what is that? And then I look it up in the documentation, read more about it, maybe read more about it on Wikipedia or someone else's blog post. Those sorts of things happen all the time. So no, I haven't read all of the documentation as far as I know, but I've gone through a lot of it. And once you have a good sense of it, then yeah, I would recommend going through it. Further, you could go through the code itself on GitHub. That I think will help you maybe even more than the documentation, depending on how well you understand Django from Try Django 1.11. If you don't understand it well enough to go through the actual code or even the documentation, do more of our projects because we have a lot of them. Nick, thanks, mate. You're welcome, Nick. Nick 0C Jr. says, how do I get the motion of a person identified by OpenCV? If you mean like how do you get like somebody's full body movement? Well, you can get that using one of their hard class cascades. There's one, I think it's called Full Body, where it'll recognize somebody walking. So you'd have to get that full frame to get somebody walking. And when you say motion of a person, do you mean like waving their hand, like this person's waving their hand now, like stuff like that? That's a little bit more advanced, and I think I'll have to look into that more. Yeah, cool. And Fried Mystery says, can you update the Try Django 1.9 series to Django 2.0? Ooh, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I might be able to do that. That is something that if you went on our Slack channel and quite literally wrote in the suggestions channel itself. So go on our Slack in suggestions. Please write that recommendation down or that suggestion down so we can build it. Lawrence said, would you recommend Node or Django for a person that just learned JavaScript? So if you learn JavaScript in ES6 and you know it well, you might just jump into Node and build a backend there. Now, if you have some interest in learning Python better, which I would recommend because Python is awesome and does a lot of really cool stuff, then perhaps you then do jump into Django just to have a better familiarity of what things that you're wanting to build. Personally, I think that Django has a ton of momentum for that reason. So that's why I would think that, Django would actually be a good idea in general. But if you, like I said, if you just did JavaScript, Node.js would be pretty good too. All right. Junior, you're working in a system about ADHD children. So you were asking about the quizzes, I believe. So yeah, I mean, another option, which maybe I would actually recommend, is they watch a short video, and then after that video, a quiz shows, and then you take the quiz, and then after that quiz, a video shows, and it does it that way, instead of having it overlaid on the video. Like why do you need it overlaid on the video is the question. If you don't have a really, really good answer for that, I would recommend doing what I just said. I think you were the one asking about that. And if you weren't, that's true for those of you who were. Hey man, I discovered your channel for a project to the end, and it's been pretty helpful for all of it for the school. Great. I'm glad I've been able to help you out. That's awesome. Joas or Josis. Sorry, I'm not great with pronouncing names. I'm sorry about that. Can you do a license plate recognition with Django and OpenCV? Yeah, so license plate I know there's a GitHub repository for that specifically. So if you've done some of our OpenCV stuff, there's a really good chance that it's actually really easy to add in this license plate recognition. But keep in mind that when you do something like that, you're probably going to have to be pretty close. Your video is probably going to, or your camera is probably going to have to be pretty close, or have really good resolution for something that's kind of far. Yeah. Manuel asks, is there any reporting framework, something comparable to Crystal Reports? There's probably a bunch of third parties that you can use that integrate with Django, or you would just build a REST API for the things that you need to be sending, or you work with their webhook where you send some data to some of these third-party things. I don't know what Crystal Reports is, so I don't know how that one works. But you can use the Django ORM or just a basic query set, and or an API, and actually have it ready to be consumed by some sort of front end that would be displaying or generating those reports. More questions about reports. That's interesting. Do you guys work in a lot of reports? Do you build a lot of reports? And if so, what kind of reports are they? Like what is in the data of those reports? Swordsman, one question: how can I make a register in a table with tell relations without the field many-to-many field? So you want to associate data, but you don't want a many-to-many field. You don't have to put a many-to-many field. You just change where the foreign key is located, and then that's how you can do those relations. Hopefully that answers your question. It's not exactly clear what you're trying to do. Okay, so you are Alexander. I figured as much, but, so it's actually Alex. Like, you want to be called Alex, maybe? And it's always been you writing to me from Oslo. Cool. Thanks, Alex. I'm going to start trying to remember to call you Alex. Thanks for coming out again. You show up all the time. That's awesome. It's pretty late there right now, right? Or what is it? 11:30? Maybe it's 10:30. Can't remember the time difference. I think it's 8 hours. But our time changes all the time, which is kind of weird. Okay. Not all the time. It changes twice a year, but still weird. That's enough to be all the time. Okay, Trey. Okay, I want to ask something. I'm about to go to school for computer science with a concentration in cybersecurity, and I've been worrying about AI. Will AI take over jobs for programmers or sysadmins? It will without a doubt, artificial intelligence will take over at least certain parts of your job. Without a doubt, right? So I've been talking about, I've talked about this in another live stream, but the idea that an artificial intelligence would like completely replace a human, I think we have a good amount of time before that happens, in the sense that these companies, even if artificial intelligence can do a lot of the work of the human, these companies will take some time before they can completely adapt into replacing that person. So, for example, I write a lot of software and I help a lot of people write software. I still think those things are going to be very important when AI writes software, when it actually does our job. Now, it's going to change how we do our job quite a bit, right? So like what I would have to do instead is show you how to work with the AI to build better software. So yeah, I mean, I think that AI is coming and it's going to help in many, many ways. But, you know, once it's here, you're not going to think of it as AI so much. You're going to think of it as another tool that makes your life a lot easier. Much like, think about all the technology that has to happen for us to have this live conversation. This potentially puts out, like YouTube Live, in theory, could stop all of their forms of live streaming. Like it could completely stop it. It could be way better. Or Facebook could do it, or all of them, whatever. But those things still exist, right? So the old way of doing things is still around. They are maybe having to switch, maybe having to change. But as YouTube Live gets better, are they going to eventually switch to using YouTube's services instead? Maybe, maybe not. Are they going to implement their own? Maybe, maybe not. So I think AI is similar to this. It's going to be a new technology that's more powerful. And the reason things like YouTube Live exist is because of some of this new technology that it's now. It's like, okay, well, yeah, we have it now. So great. And I think that's going to be very, very similar to AI. It's much like your smartphone. Like if you have a smartphone, which I think chances are good that you do, a lot of people have them. There was a time that wasn't the case, right? But now it's just so common that the capabilities you can do because of that tool have grown exponentially. I would say the same thing is true about a lot of the AI that would replace jobs for most of us. So let's think of it in terms of like a truck driver. Their job is at risk right now, right? So they're already seeing this tool starting to take over, okay? But what these truck drivers could be doing right now is they could be helping, like if you are a truck driver and you want to help your company build in these automation systems, they could do that. They could absolutely help train these things into taking over their job. While they do that, learning new crafts and new skills to adapt with the times, because those things are happening. Like if I was a truck driver right now, I would be talking all about this all the time, putting it on YouTube, talking to other truck drivers, interviewing them also on YouTube, and talking about why companies need to adopt this, because that job is probably not great. I don't love driving, so if I was sitting in a car for 8 hours a day, I think that would be really, really challenging, right? And then when AI comes in to replace those jobs, it will be painful for the people that do it, absolutely. But what's going to happen is it's going to allow them to do other things. And if they don't see the writing on the wall now, then we as a society need to encourage them to learn new things, new skills, new trades that they maybe never thought about doing before, and spend less time with entertainment. I realize that some of them might work a 12-hour day and the last thing they want to do is sit down and learn something. So then that also means that we should lean on the companies that use a lot of these truck driving services to require them to learn some new technology and stuff like that. And I would say the exact same thing is true for AI and programmers. Totally went on a little bit of a tangent, but I still think learning computer science with your concentration in cybersecurity is going to be very relevant for a long time. But just do keep in mind that when new technology comes out like AI or anything that's going to sort of help automate the process, when it comes to security, we will still need experts that verify that the AIs are doing the things that they need to, because sometimes they might have flaws themselves. So that's going to take people like you to think of things a little bit differently, to use these tools in a different way. Hopefully that answers your question. Good luck in computer science school. I'm assuming you're going to college. Good luck in college. All right. So I scrolled and then it goes to the very bottom. Okay, so where was I? Scrolling back up. Here we go. Okay, Jeremy asks, do you use Django CMS framework like Wagtail or Django CMS? No, I do not use CMS frameworks. I think they are more challenging to implement than they're worth. And when I say more challenging to implement, I mean long term. Because, yeah, sure, maybe they're really easy to actually implement and then you can use them and they're great. That's possible, and that's probably why they exist. But if I want to change those things, I think that there's a good number of things that just aren't addressed inside of those that, like, I don't know. I just typically don't like using them. I'd rather build my own solution and have that part working. That's essentially where I'm at with those with CMSs. Or if you really just need a CMS, maybe using WordPress. I don't like to say it because I don't think WordPress is made for developers. I think it's made for content people. So like if you're a developer, you probably want to build your own solution, or you might look at something like Wagtail or Django CMS. But why? I don't know why even use those things when either just build it yourself by using those as examples, or use WordPress. That's kind of how I feel about it. I'm actively looking to be proven wrong on that, though. I really want to know why people use pre-built Django CMS systems instead of just building a lot of these tools themselves. Yeah. Chris, what time is it there? It's time zone. It's 1:14 a.m. for you. For me, it's 3:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Peter asks, what are the pros and cons tech-wise for a freelancer filing as a self-employed as versus working for a company? Yeah, so as a freelancer, you can deduct so many things. Now, I'm not a tax expert, and I probably need to learn even more about it. But that new computer that you need, that's right off. You can write that off. The new computer you need, your company might buy it for you. They might not. And if you have to buy it personally, then maybe not. Now, obviously, in some cases, if you don't only use it for work, then yeah, you probably won't be able to write it off completely, which your tax accountant would help you with that. But you can write off a ton of things, including going to events, right? So you go to live events, you can write those off. If you fly there, you go to the trip and you're there for 3 or 4 days for an event, that whole thing can be written off of your income. So therefore your taxable income is a lot less. And you can do that with a lot of things. That's something that's really, really cool about being a freelancer. Now, of course, it has to be justified with what your business is or what your freelance job is. But it still does make a big difference as far as tax-wise is concerned, that you can write off just so much stuff as self-employed. Now, if you start making a lot of money, then it might be a good idea to work with a tax accountant to maybe incorporate and then figure out how the taxing structure should be done then. So in theory, then you're working for a company, but as a company that you own, that might actually be a better tax structure for yourself with freelancing. In some cases, it does mean you might be double taxed, but it also might mean that you're taxed corporate income tax, which typically is a lot less than personal income tax. And then you're taxed with personal income tax on the back end. So yes, you are double taxed, but the tax rates are likely different. And again, that's going to depend on how much money you're making. Because as a freelancer, if you're not making that much, sure, you can write off a good amount of it and it looks like you make nothing, which is fine. Then you don't get taxed very much, but you probably wouldn't incorporate and do all that stuff and then actually get double taxed, because the corporate tax will still happen. I'm not positive if it's regardless of how much you make, but the corporate tax will most likely still happen. Thanks for the question, Peter. Do you guys want to know more about that? That is something that I think I need to know more of to give you an even better answer there. That perhaps maybe sitting down and chatting with a tax a tax pro that looks for these loopholes all the time might be a really beneficial thing for all of us to work through. Let me know, guys. Let me know. Of course, it's probably mostly for those of you in the United States, though. Maybe Canada, too. I don't know if Canada has the same tax law, but yeah. Jeremy Chen, agreed. I think whiteboard interviews is testing other skills. It's hard to work with people that can only communicate in code. Absolutely. Like if you are a genius coder and you can't have a conversation with somebody, you might go and do something like Toastmasters, where you have to get in front of a group and practice giving toasts. This is also known as practicing speaking in front of the public. Like that might be really, really good for you if you're a hardcore programmer or you're just a hardcore introvert. Getting outside of the box, I think, is really, really good. Cool. Mutaputa, hey, what's up? You have a question about OpenCV. Is it possible to import the Kiwi framework with OpenCV, I'm assuming, and make a simple app for Android to capture the videos and pictures and save them into any format you want? Now, can you make a Kiwi app using OpenCV? I actually don't know if that's possible. It might be, but like what I would do with OpenCV instead is use it on the server as a processing mechanism, post using something in Kiwi to capture a video or picture. If you're talking about a front end like image or face recognition software, like something for Android or Swift, I would imagine there's packages that maybe are built off of OpenCV to do those things for you on the app itself. But then you can use OpenCV in the backend to process those videos that you may store. That I don't actually have a really good answer for. I think there might be somebody else that knows that specifically, but I haven't actually tried to put OpenCV as a native app on Android or Apple at this point, or iOS. Cool. Mohammed, looks like you liked something that I said. Justin Bates, your message was retracted. Maybe you deleted it. Maybe YouTube removed it. No idea. Pay user, greetings from Germany. Hey, what's up? Welcome. Greetings from California. Brian Fisher, awesome. We need to keep track of their process or progress when they answer, and also know which ones got wrong and print out at the end. And we should be able to print and send the results via JavaScript. Yeah, you should be able to. So you need to keep track of things. Absolutely. You can do all of that in JavaScript. So if you have a video and you're wanting to take quizzes or have questions related to that video in real time, a lot of these videos you can see what time it's at, and then you can have different triggers inside of your JavaScript that will display different things at different times. That's essentially what those other services might be doing. I'm not positive what they're doing, but I would imagine that's what they're doing. As long as you're not using something like Flash. If you're using Flash, you could make it hard coded into the Flash application, which I wouldn't recommend using Flash, but that is something. And I'm sure there's something for Java that does all that too. Anyways. Justin Bass asks, with Heroku, how can I determine my Dino count with memory size and number of users with Heroku and Unicorn? So your Dino count should show you, it should just show you that in Heroku. So if you go to Heroku.com and log in to your app, it should show you how many dinos you have, and I believe you can also look up what memory is for each dino. The number of users you have, are you talking about your user accounts in Heroku, like your team accounts? Well, I feel like that might be fairly straightforward. If you're talking about with Django, then you go in the Django admin and you check it out there. And Unicorn, I'm assuming you mean G Unicorn. I'm not sure if you mean Unicorn exactly, because if you're talking about Unicorn, I don't know Unicorn. I know G Unicorn, but I don't know Unicorn. I think G Unicorn was built off of Unicorn, but I'm not positive. Justin asks, for pages like lander pages, how can I optimize page loads? So landing pages, how can I optimize page load speeds for my users while caching pages, almost like we're serving them statically, since our pages uses dynamics template inheriting. So you can do caching in Django. You can cache templates I'm assuming you're using Django. You can probably do it on other frameworks as well. You can cache templates, and if you're loading them static or serving them statically or loading them dynamically, what do you mean by loading them dynamically? Do you mean by when you go to a request, you load a different template? And then my question would be, why are you loading a different template specifically, and why not just have a condition in your template where those things change as well? Perhaps you need a different template, perhaps not. Not really sure what you're building, so that's I'm guessing maybe you're trying to A/B test some different landing pages, and if that's the case, I would actually have dedicated URLs for these different A/B tests of these landing pages and just change the URL itself. And then that way you can cache things and it'll speed things up a lot. And then if you're doing advertising or promotion of some kind to any given URL, then you can just have them go to that URL and it'll be cached there. That'd be another way to speed things up. Number 3, what are the top 3 things to scale up an application with your code? Basically to optimize the app. The top 3 things to think of off the top of my head. Let's see. So to scale up your application, basically to optimize. So scaling up your application and optimizing it aren't necessarily the same things. Scaling up, you can scale up your dynos if you're using Heroku, and that essentially can scale up your application. To optimize it, you can use the Django debug toolbar to see how efficient your queries are. That's another thing. So you can see how many times any given query on any given view hits the database. And then you'll want to start to figure out how to optimize those queries, so those query sets. Because the less time you hit the database, or the less often you hit the database, the faster things will load, and therefore the more optimized your app. Next, you would probably want to run unit tests to make sure that the way things are running is nice and smooth, because testing can help you with optimizing. Because if your tests tend to take a long time, then you can try and reverse engineer it to make them not take as long of a time and therefore optimizing it. The next thing is using the caching framework, like I just mentioned. You can use it for a whole variety of things. You can use it to cache query sets. You can use it to cache views. You can use it to cache templates. You can use it for all sorts of things. So check out that. Another one would be using the prefetch method on a query set. So if you have related fields, using prefetch related, or I think the other one is select related, that would also help optimize it. Lastly, read on Django documentation for optimization. And actually, I'm pretty sure that 2 Scoops of Django, that book, talks a lot more in detail about those different optimization techniques as well. Hopefully that helps you. Cool. So Juan, I'm glad I could help. Thank you for letting me know that, well, maybe it didn't help. I don't know. You just thanked me for the answer. So you're welcome. Okay. So Chris, you still can't get it. Okay. So, I mean, even with that link, try going to, a different YouTube video and clicking the link there, a different live one, because they're usually on the lives. So hopefully that will get the answer for you. Okay, so Brian, thanks so much. You're welcome. Justin, is there a way to calculate the number of dynos needed? That's what you're asking me. Okay, so is there a number of way to do it in Django? There might be a way to do that. I'm actually not sure about that. So what I would do instead is check your logs and see what your throughput is for your processes. So if your dynos are being fully maximized, then that will give you indication of that you should update them. That's what I think. Cool. Marty Nas. Hey, what's up? How's it going? First, you are awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoy the tutorials, and I'm trying to share the things I know to help you guys get your projects out there. It also helps me, believe it or not. I actually learned quite a bit, as Mohammed would know all too well. Mohammed Saad has asked some really good questions already. Mohammed, maybe I need to bring you on the team. Anyways, Martin, let's see. Would it be possible to make a tutorial on how to make your own Django project layout using Cookie Cutter? Thanks, Marty Nas, Australia and Lithuania. Oh, cool. Welcome. Thank you and welcome. So Django Cookie Cutter is from that author of Two Scoops of Django. I believe, I'm pretty sure he is. Him and his wife Aubrey, I believe they make it. How do you make your own? I'm actually not positive how to make a layout there. And I'm also not sure why you would want to divert from theirs specifically. If you're talking about making something where you can just like write a command and it builds it for you, let me know. That might be it. That might be the thing that you're referring to. Website Designer Pro, semantic search, thoughts. What do you want to know about it? And then I'll give you my thoughts. Justin Bates. Also, I thought you said it started at 3:30. I might have said that. It started at 3:30. Thanks for joining now. Sorry, if you go to joincfe.com, joincfe.com/YouTube and subscribe to a channel, you'll get the notifications for when it starts. You'll get, especially if you hit that little bell, you'll get the notifications for when it starts and when I schedule them. Because if I told you 3:30, that was a mistake. But I'm pretty sure that I scheduled it for 3. That's why I started at 3. But I'm still going. So even though maybe you came at 3:30 or 3:45 or whenever you came, you're here now. So I can try and answer as many questions as possible while you're here. And I'll keep going. I have a little bit more time that I can do today. So let's keep going. Arian asks, should I use the inbuilt Django admin or should I create a custom one for production? It depends on what you need to do. If you need to customize the Django admin a ton, build your own one. If you don't, then just use the Django admin. It's awesome. It's great. I use it all the time. I scrolled and lost a bunch of stuff. I kind of wish that these live chat threads, that there was a way to like stack the threads together. Like if you're asking something like just like in Slack, actually, like you can respond on these threads in there. Yeah. Okay. Yes. And Brian, the overlay for the quizzes so students would engage while watching and test their understanding of what they're learning. Yeah, no, I totally get that. And awesome that you're working at 3:35 a.m. You got to do what you got to do to make things happen, right? But sleep is really important. It's really important to rest and let all of these ideas that you're going back and forth on to sit there and, taking showers, working out, all these things are good for you too. Just keep that in mind. But sometimes you got to grind and sometimes you're up late at night. So yeah, I mean, I totally get you want to keep them engaged while they're learning. So every once in a while, maybe you want to pop up in the video that prevents them from going forward, but ask them a quick question. You could do that in the entire page. I don't know if that necessarily needs to be in the video, though. That would be my argument for that specifically. Cool. Justin Bates says, I like the wink of used them as an example. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Justin. Sorry. Maybe I winked. Did I wink? I don't know. What do you use to build dashboards in Django? I use Django. Do you mean like front end stuff? Like if I need charts and stuff like that? Then I use chart.js. I have used HighChart in the past, or HighCharts in the past. .js. I really like chart.js. I think it's really clean and simple. And we do cover a lot of that too. So I use Django with that and some Ajax. There has been times where I've done AngularJS back when that was a little bit more appropriate to use. Now it's just Angular, which is not called AngularJS anymore. It's just called Angular. So yeah, that's sort of what I do. Joe, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Justin Bates, yes, more info on tax info would be nice. Okay, good to know. So does that mean you guys want to know more about like freelancing and entrepreneurship sort of things in general? That's something I'm really curious to hear about from you. If you like sort of my way of explaining things, maybe I'll start to have to research more on that, and perhaps it would make more sense living on a different channel. I don't know, or a different website, because coding for entrepreneurs is so much for coding, and perhaps it's something like growth for creators or something like that, where we can talk about all that sort of stuff, or taxes for entrepreneurs. No, that sounds terrible. Who's going to sign up for taxes for entrepreneurs? Whew, I wouldn't. It just sounds so boring. That's why. I don't know. Maybe coding for entrepreneurs sounds boring to some people too. So got to remember that. Okay. So more on the Lot J, when to scale to reseller hosting. When to scale to reseller hosting. I'm not sure what you are asking me that specifically, what you mean by reseller hosting. So like, when do you move over to a different hosting service? If that's what you mean, please let me know. Sam Gold, what can you say about IT popularization? Like, why is IT popular? Is that what you mean? I'm not sure what IT popularization is. Like, why is information technology so big? It's so important. I don't know. Maybe that's your question. Maybe it's not. Sorry, I don't have an answer for you. Miguel, hey, what's up? Welcome back from Mexico. I don't know how to pronounce your city, so I'm not going to try. Some recommendation to generate Excel files in Python and Django, and also process Excel files uploaded from them. So I'm assuming you mean Excel files and not CSV files. I believe there are third-party packages that can read those things in Python, much like they would be able to read a normal file. I just don't know of some off the top of my head. Like, if I were to do that for a project right now, that's what I would do. I'd research open source Python libraries that open actual Excel files. That's what I look for. But I think there is some formatting issues that happen because Excel files themselves historically were proprietary technology to Microsoft. But I think that's changed a lot to allow a lot of people to use them. I think so. Is there a good way to build a free web server for your web app? And not have so when you say a free web server, well, like, do you mean like the actual physical server, like a service that you put your web app on, that part being free? Or do you mean like something like Nginx or Apache? You probably mean the first one. You'd have to get like an Ubuntu server somewhere probably, or a Linux server, and install all the web technologies that you need. King Herring, can you dab? Maybe I can, maybe I can't. I don't know. Why do you want to know? Like, I kind of feel like that's my younger brother asking me that. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. That seems like something he would jump on my live stream and ask me. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, teenagers. Django REST framework is painfully slow. I do not agree with you. Why do you think that it's painfully slow? Please let me know. Trey Keller, another question I have. I've been learning HTML, CSS, and PHP because I need to make money as a freelancer because I can't get a professional job right now and I need the experience in the workforce. So, I don't like PHP. I think PHP is old, so I wouldn't necessarily want to stick with PHP. That being said, you said right after this you want to use PHP because of WordPress. Totally get that. WordPress is, like, helping people with WordPress is something that's valuable for sure. So maybe that's why you stick with it. But if you really want to build new functioning web apps, I would not stick with PHP. I think the only reason you would do it is to help people on WordPress. That's literally the only reason. Or general interest. But PHP is kind of old. Django, Ruby on Rails, Node.js, those are the things that I would recommend that you do. But at the same time, like, if you end up finding opportunities using PHP, go for it. Build your skill there and get as good as you possibly can. Every day, just get better and better. So now you said you need to make money as a freelancer. Well, what I think you need to do is help others, like give value before you get value. You have to. That's just what you have to do sometimes or all the time. I mean, how many of you guys have ever purchased any of my courses? You don't actually have to tell me, but think to yourself if you ever have and realize that I'm doing that right now. So I'm not just saying it, I'm doing it. So you would want to do that same thing to get freelance jobs. Like charge practically nothing. I realize you need to make money to live and to work and all that stuff, but you're making it okay right now because you're able to sit on this live stream and have some conversation with me and have these chats, even though I'm not talking about PHP a whole lot. I'm not talking about JavaScript a whole lot. I'm just sort of giving advice. But what you could be doing also, or instead of, is you could stop watching this live stream, which, was unfortunate to me, but you could stop watching this live stream and then go and build projects for other people. Go on like Stack Overflow or Quora, somebody saying like, hey, I need this help, or on Reddit. Like there's a startup stream on Reddit, like go on there and say like, hey, I'm just trying to get better at this stuff. So how can I help you? How can I help you? There's a lot of ways on how you can go about doing that. If you want to start freelancing, go on Upwork.com and have your profile there and charge practically nothing and say that you are doing this, you are charging practically nothing for experience because you're not super experienced yet, and be extra humble there. Even if you are experienced, act like you're not super experienced, and then just have unbelievably good customer service. That's what I think. Okay, scrolling back up. Hello, in 2 words, what do you think the difference between Django and what's the difference between a query set and context? Thanks for the question. So query set, what that is like what you're going to be looking up in a database. Context, I think in the form you're referring to it as, is the things that go in your template that can be rendered. I believe that's what you're talking about. So context could be as simple as a string. They could be more advanced, like a query set. So you can have the context itself can have a query set in it. And context is typically a dictionary and something that you can load inside of the template. Thanks for the question. Trey asks, why is there a big market for web developers? I see a lot of drag and drop platforms, so I don't understand why it's still profitable. Oh, Trey, this is something that, thank you for asking this question. So drag and drop platforms, you can only build what those developers have figured out what you could build. So this is something like if you were going to build something like Slack, if you've never used Slack, I would definitely recommend checking it out, even if it's not our channel. How would you build something like Slack with drag and drop? You just couldn't. You couldn't do it. So something new and novel like Slack. I mean, Slack has a lot of features that aren't new and novel, but there's a lot of them that are, and they make for a great experience. So if you want to control that experience, if you want to control what's being built, drag and drop platforms just can't do that yet. Eventually, they probably will. With the aid of artificial intelligence, they probably will be able to do that because of the promise of where they might go. But today, I don't think there's a chance that a drag and drop platform could ever come up against what a web developer can do. And that being said, the role of a web developer is not always just doing the code. Sometimes it's deciding what should be done and what shouldn't. Drag and drop platforms, you might have the tendency to just throw everything at the wall or put everything there, and that ends up being a hot mess. So why there's a big market for web developers is, number one, there is a ton of demand for automating things, and web developers help automate things. They do other things as well, but they help with this automation process or thinking through how can we leverage technology to grow our tribe or reach a bigger audience or whatever. So that's part of it. The other part is, think about this, like 7,480 million people do not know how to code. Simply do not know how to code. And about 20 million do. So in other words, 7.4 billion people don't know how to code. That's a huge amount of people. And I would argue in our lifetime, all of those people will be on the internet. They will be online. So where are all those people going to go? What are all those people going to do? We need web developers to help solve that problem, and we need web developers from around the world to help solve that problem because, your community, yeah, sure, maybe I can make some sort of tool that might work well with it, maybe not, but maybe not. It's hard to say, right? But if you're in that community, you might have the interest that I don't have, like as in the just actual interest or just being a part of that community to make it better. And you also have the perspective that I don't have. I don't know about your community. I don't know about your tribe. So that's where a web developer can come in and make that happen. And that's why they can still make so much money, is because they can add so much value to the world. And these drag and drop platforms are made by web developers. And perhaps in the future, we'll have much, much better ones where they replace the role of a web developer overall. But again, it's about finding that perspective for, what is going on in your tribe, your community. Yeah. And of course, by tribe, I mean your community, like your customers, your audience, your group, stuff like that. But tribe is just a word that feels like we're connected, right? Feels like we're together on this versus audience. Like, you guys are my tribe, not my audience. That's silly. Tribe. We're a tribe. We're in this together. You guys are asking these questions and I'm helping make these things happen as much as I can. We're in it together. Brian says, so a Java dev created a customized version of HapYak, interactive video and data. If you are familiar, it's Java code. Can we possibly integrate it with our Django project? Yeah, you might be able to. I haven't used HapYak myself. So basically, if you can integrate it into any HTML page, yes, you can integrate it into Django. It wouldn't really be working off of Django necessarily. It could, but it would be working off of Django would render an HTML page. That HTML page would render that Java code potentially, or that Java embed code specifically. Cool. Web Designer Pro, for example, how to take dentist query and search for dental, DDS, doctor, etc. So how do we? You asked me. What did you ask me? Basically, like how do we turn in these queries and make them like the same, right? So dental, DDS, doctor, all of those are roughly the exact same thing. How do we turn that into being that? Well, a couple different ways on how you could do this inside of Django. I'm guessing you're asking me about inside of Django. You can tag any particular model with those things, and then when you do a search, you look for those tags. The next thing is you can use something like NLTK, so the Natural Language Toolkit, and there's other ones that are like that. But what it does is it could take a query and get the synonyms of that query, and then you can do lookup that way with all of those synonyms as well, and then have some sort of ranking algorithm that would rank more relevant pages up higher. Yeah, that'd be a way to do it. At least that's what I think. Okay. So Trey, another question. Yes, I like asking questions. Thank you. I love answering questions. So we're here for both the same reason. It's good. Or the opposite reason, but we both like doing the same thing. Or the opposite of the same thing. Or is it the same thing? I don't know. Anyways, I don't like CSS because to me it's funky. I think you said I know Java and Python, and to me CSS is a pain. Is copying other people's layouts and changing them bad? No, use Bootstrap. That's what I do. I feel somewhat similar to you as CSS. Like, why would we reinvent the wheel there when there's already so many CSS frameworks out there that can make our projects look really, really cool? Where the functionality of that project would rely on something like Java or Python or Node or whatever. So yeah, Bootstrap is a great resource for that. Cool. All right, guys. So maybe 10 more minutes. Maybe, I don't know. Okay. So Swordsman, hi, I'm from Mexico. Could I make a blog in Spanish with your content? It would be very helpful to learn more and make more content in Spanish for Django developing. Now, if you copy my content, how am I going to stop you from doing that? I don't speak Spanish, so it's going to be really hard for me to do that. But what I would recommend that you do is, instead of copying my content, learn from it as much as you possibly can, really start to master it, and then share your own unique experience. That's what I would recommend. And yeah, make a blog out of it. Start making courses. Do all the things just like that, and then come to me when you have questions. Yeah, that's what I would do, right? Like if I was you, and that's what I encourage you to do, because you'll get so much better at building stuff and making things happen. And since my number one goal is to help you get your project going, if you help other people do that too, that's great. If I honestly, if I no longer have a job because all of my students put me out of a job, or all of the members in my tribe put me out of a job because they're making way better content than I ever did, I think I did a good job. I think that's a good thing in the long run. Cool. Clint, use free BSD or Linux. Yes. Okay. Thanks. I got a message retracted from a Russian name, it looks like. I don't know that name. Mohammed, any info about microservices? Can we use it with Django? So microservices are what they sound like, right? They're usually just dedicated to one thing. Let's say, for instance, image processing. You can make a microservice specifically for image processing for your project or projects, and then it's just that one thing. That's all it does. Django can absolutely do that, and you can use a REST API to build that microservice. Let's see, scrolling back up. King Herring, we have a complex models on a project, or ours 100 or 150 milliseconds for a single patch request with Django REST framework. Unacceptable. Okay. Sorry. Maybe you build. Well, are you sure it's the Django REST framework that's doing that, or that's having that problem? And why is 150 milliseconds unacceptable? Like what is it that you're using that's causing that problem? It looks like you're saying. It looks like you have a few other stuff. Justin Bates, I paid. Hey, thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. From one Justin to another. Hey from Rue. I'm assuming you mean hey from Russia. Will you do courses about React and Django or Angular? I have Django and Angular classes already. I have a few of them. So check out joincfe.com/courses or joincfe.com/projects. There's a bunch on there. React, I get that request a lot. So I made a YouTube video on how to integrate Django with any front end whatsoever. King Herring, Django REST framework compared to function endpoints is way slower. Their serializer sucks. Oh, okay. I haven't had any problems with it, but if you have so much data that's coming through that the Django REST framework doesn't work for you, perhaps send an issue to them and say, hey, this is not great and this is why. They might make it. They might make it better. Maybe not. I don't know. Curious to what it is that you're building though. Okay. Sumya says I need to make an ML web app. How do I have Node.js plus React with an ML Python code? So I just mentioned microservices. You can use a microservice and basically turn your Python machine learning code into a microservice and turn it into having some endpoint that React can call or Node.js can call. Cool. Django REST framework patch requests are not atomic. Okay. Yep. So what do you use then? Is that why you don't like Django REST framework? It's probably something I need to know more of. Thanks, King Herring. Much appreciated with the feedback on the Django REST framework. I still like it a lot. I still think it's pretty good for a variety of things. Maybe they will have atomic requests later. It's hard to say. I don't know. Next question is, what is the difference between Flutter and native React.js? Haven't used Flutter, so I can't comment there. Maybe somebody else could. I remember seeing it, but I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what it is. Okay. So Pedro says, thank you for your time. You've really helped my learning and minimized my learning curve. Thank you. I'm glad. That's great to hear. Do I have courses? Excuse me. Do I have courses covering IoT integration? There's a project that I've created on joincfe.com that is for a Raspberry Pi. So it's called Home Baked. you can see how to set up a local server using Django and Raspberry Pi. Yes. Sam, I'll tell you what I meant by IT popularization in case of extending interaction. Well, I changed my mind while writing this. Now I'm interested about your career. I hope the question isn't offensive in US. No, it's not offensive. Asking me about my career. What do you want to know? What else do you want to know? Happy to chat. Next question. Is it safe to use SQLite on production? No, you probably don't want to use SQLite on production if you want to store things in your database. If your database doesn't really matter, then maybe it's okay. But I would probably want to use like a lightweight MySQL or Postgres instead. Next question. Node.js versus Django. They can accomplish the same things. They don't always accomplish the same things. So, I mean, it's like one's better today, one's better tomorrow. Like they switch a lot. Node.js developers will, maybe a lot of them will say that Node.js is better for X, Y, and Z reason. And Django developers might say the same thing. So I think what's better, or what do I think about it? I think they can work hand in hand. One can be used for real-time notifications, which is what Instagram does with Node.js. And the other one can be for all the other stuff, which again is what Instagram does with Django. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to just scroll down to the bottom. King Herring has the last question with the WYSIWYG question. That's the last question I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to jump off. Okay, Trey asks, okay, still asking a question. You're awesome, man. Thanks for joining. You've never used a framework before. You know Python and C Sharp the most, but you picked up languages quickly. And others, what would you recommend as a good starter framework? You tried Django, and it looked very complicated, so you went to PHP. Yeah, so Django is actually not that complicated. I would just go check out my Try Django 1.11 series. Just try that out and see what you think. There's a lot to it. There's roughly 8 hours or so. But since you already know a lot of this code, you could probably just watch a lot of it and not necessarily code while you go and learn about it there. I'm just going to continue. Oh, Web Designer Pro, you'll look into that toolkit. Awesome. Great. Trey, you said you'll look into Flask because you know Python really well, but you can learn JavaScript and Node. There's so many options. Yes, there is so many options. So Flask is good for really lightweight projects, and my opinion is if I'm even doing a lightweight project, I would probably use Django because I can build things in Django so much faster. So I really, really, really like Django. But I know Django developers, including that guy Denny Greenfield that I mentioned earlier, I know he uses Flask for all sorts of things like his microservices. Okay, so we're really close to the end here, guys. Thanks so much for all the questions. I've enjoyed all of this. And I've had a good time. This is definitely, I think, been my longest one to date. But again, I've been gone for a little while, so it makes sense that this one would be a little bit longer. Clint, you were referring to the person asking the question about making a free server. Oh, thanks. You gave some references for a free server. Much appreciated. Yeah, so Linux and free BSD. That's how you can make a free server, assuming you have a computer and all that stuff. Or like a Linux, or an actual machine. You actually have the hardware. Thanks, Clint. Appreciate it. We have a WYSIWYG written in React that calls Django REST framework. Okay, gotcha. And you're saying that sorry, I'm reading what you wrote. They work on API Star, a micro framework that can use Django ORM. Oh, interesting. Okay, so there's another solution for your WYSIWYG that you wrote in React. That's pretty cool. So yeah, it's not fast enough for instant feedback. I totally agree. What's the speed that you're looking for your WYSIWYG? And do you have a link to it? Would you share what editor you're doing? Is it open source? If it's not, let us know. API Star, I'm actually really interested in checking that out because perhaps that one is better. API Star, is it a Python library? Looks like it is. Okay. Might have to check this thing out. Thank you so much, King Herring, for bringing that to my attention. perhaps that one's going to be a lot better. Yeah. Perhaps it will. Cool. I did overlook a question, or almost overlooked a question that said, what books do you recommend specifically about Django? I don't read a lot of Django books because I don't necessarily need to. I read a lot of documentation. I watch a lot of videos. I read blog posts. So often I recommend that. But if you like books, which a lot of people do, and I see some value there, Two Scoops of Django. Danny Greenfield, the one who wrote it, has a lot of really, really good stuff in there, even the older version. So even if you buy a used copy of an older version, that might be a good book to check out. Okay, cool. So few more questions just to finish this off. Lewis says, hello, can you tell more about Linux permissions for Django? What permissions are enough and multiple users and groups? Sorry, Lewis, I don't know if I'm going to be able to accurately answer this right now. So please leave that in the comments for the video. Like after the video posts to YouTube, please put that in the comments and maybe I'll be able to have some time to address it next time. And please be a little bit more specific about what you're trying to ask there. Yeah. Rohan says lectures on Django 1.11 are very, very awesome. I'm hoping you're saying my lessons. If you are, thank you so much. Trey, thanks so much for asking all the questions. You asked a lot of really good ones. Keep it up. And I hope to see you next time to ask even more questions. Wadi, thanks a lot. Glad I can help you. King Herring, it's really too late to revert to something custom. And it's proprietary code at True Academy, SAS for Schools. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe make it open source. You know, honestly, I think I was having a discussion with Mohammed on Slack. Pretty sure it's Mohammed that we were talking about. I'm considering making the next version of Coding for Entrepreneurs completely open source. That is codingforentrepreneurs.com. Just make it completely open source so our tribe can really, really benefit from it. So I would say, King Herring, that you consider doing something like that. Maybe it's not the exact same project that you're doing, but maybe it's like a scaled down version. That way we can all have a conversation about improving it and making it better. It's just a question, or maybe you talk to those of you at True Academy to see if they would be interested in doing that, because I think the result of that tool is what you really want. That would be my guess, is you want the result from that tool. And how do you get better results from that tool? And one way is making it open source. And, you know, the goodwill you can build from that for this SAS for Schools might really be there, you know? So like I don't know if True Academy would sort of replace codingforentrepreneurs.com, but maybe it would. And if it did, or if it's like a competitor to Teachable, tell me that in this live stream. So I haven't quite left yet, obviously. But if it's a competitor to one of these other services, you know, what is open sourcing something like that going to do for you now that might help bring more attention to your SaaS business, right? Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to build this SaaS business out. And like, if somebody else has this WYSIWYG editor on there, is that really going to hurt your business, or will it help it? I think it would probably help it, honestly. Yeah. Cool. Justin, it's the Django debug toolbar. Django debug toolbar. Yeah, it competes with Teachable, and there's a free tier plan. Okay, yeah. So since you compete with Teachable, you guys are. I think Teachable is a little bit bigger on this range of things, right? I'm pretty sure it is. So, because I haven't heard of you, Teachable hit me up so many times. I had to talk to the founder and say, dude, I'm not moving, you know, but they're persistent and they're growing a big business. So yeah, you might really consider open sourcing as much, if not everything, and look at Buffer as a really good example of that, because what you are selling is time, And if you give away your open source tools, I'm selling that too. If you give away the tools that help you sell that time back to people, much like what I'm attempting to do with Coding for Entrepreneurs, what I'm attempting to do here, that is so much value that will hopefully help you in the long run. The trouble with open sourcing is making it more generic. No, you don't have to make it an open source package by anyone else's rules. You make it by yours. That's what I'd say. Even just releasing the code is open source, and perhaps it's not a true open source package where you can just install things, but it might end up being really, really good. Juan, I did not skip you on purpose. I'm sorry. I'm coming back. What do you recommend in order to have push notifications in a Django app? For example, in a restaurant software, the chef may let the food runners know when the food is ready to be delivered. So like a push notification on a mobile device. Now you can use, I think Firebase, I'm pretty sure Firebase has a solution for that, for mobile devices. And I believe there's even apps that have a very simple API that basically your users would download that app and then they would get notifications via that app, and those would happen with that API or some sort of webhook, so then you don't have to build a mobile app yourself. If you already have a mobile app, then I think Firebase is a really good example of that. If you don't have a mobile app and you just have a web app, then there was, I don't remember the name of it, but there's definitely like a service that allowed for that. So anyways, that's it, everyone. Thank you so much. Had a great time today. We talked a while. Hope to see you in the Slack channel or just on YouTube in general. Make sure you join. So joincfe.com/YouTube. Subscribe to get everything. Make sure you click that bell. Thanks again for coming out. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you guys in the near future. Take care.